Hey guys, welcome back to my channel McNallie Money, home of all things stock, investment, and personal finance related. Now for today's video, we've got a double header for you, Q3 earnings from two of the top companies that we follow on this channel, the Valens Company and Kontrol Technologies. Super excited to provide this update. Before we get into it today, you guys, please take a second to hit the like button. It's a huge help to both myself and the channel. If you're not already subscribed, McNallie Money, feel free to do so. And let me know in the comment section below what you thought about these numbers, if you're currently holding shares of these companies, and if there's any other stocks you want me to cover on this channel moving forward. Now, without further ado, let's get into today's video. Okay guys, so that's right. Today's video is super exciting. We've got earnings from two of the companies that are mainstays on this channel. The Valens Company first up here and Kontrol Technologies. Now the Valens Company just reported official Q3 results, so we're going to go through that first. KNR or Kontrol Tech has actually put out preliminary Q3 results, so we're going to talk about that second up in the video here. But super exciting that we got a double header in terms of Q3 earnings. I'm recording this after market close Wednesday night, so October 13th, so it's going to be interesting to see how the market reacts to these numbers on Thursday's session. You can see here the Valens Company, ticker symbol VLNS on the Toronto Stock Exchange, closed out Wednesday's session up 8 cents per share, so 3.5%. That landed them at $2.32 Canadian. Now, as most of you are probably aware who have watched this channel for some time, the Valens Company along with Tilt Holdings are actually my two biggest positions across all of my portfolios combined. Both of these are small cap companies focused on the MJ space. You can see here the Valens Company currently has a market cap of just over $400 million Canadian. And I've got a 6-month chart pulled up on the screen. And honestly, this one's been a little bit upsetting for me, you guys. This company was trading above $4 back in the middle of May of this year. Fast forward to the middle of July, they had pulled down to the 222 level, which is really where we're starting to get close to now. Towards the end of August, they had some great strength. They were up above $3.25. And then we've now seen the share price retreat quite dramatically down to that $2.30 kind of level. So again, interesting to see tomorrow what the market's going to do here. And with that being said, let's get into their Q3 results. Now for full disclosure here, you guys, I originally had about $13,000 of the Valens Company, about 5,500 shares. I have sold off 1,000 shares, so I'm sitting on right now about 4,450 shares of the Valens Company. I did that about a month ago. I actually took that money and put it into Peak FinTech along with Hut 8 Mining. And I really wanted to take some risk out of the equation. A lot of my portfolio is focused around small cap MJ companies, and the industry as a whole has really been beaten up over the last couple of months. So I wanted to take some money out of that industry, put it into some more high growth small cap companies here in Canada. And I'm really glad I did so. I was able to get out of the Valens Company about $3 per share. So looking back, it was definitely a nice decision, not to mention the fact that I'm doing great on the Hut 8 and Peak positions themselves. So here's the earnings report here. You can see the Valens Company reports financial results for third quarter fiscal 2021. Now, to be honest, you guys, this was kind of a mixed bag for me. There definitely were some highlights in this earnings report. We're going to talk about one specifically as it relates to the MJ infused beverages. But overall, I thought this was a pretty soft quarter for the Valens Company, especially considering they've now folded in the Green Roads acquisition down in Florida. Now, if we scroll through the article to the key highlights, you can see gross revenue increased 33% compared to Q3 of last year. So it landed at $24.6 million in top line revenue compared to $18.5 million in 2020. Now, that being said, net revenue, so this is after they take out what's called an excise tax. This is essentially a tax put in place by the Canadian government on certain products like cigarettes, alcohol, MJ. Once that's actually removed, we're looking at net revenue increase of only 15.8% in Q3 of this year, so $21 million even, compared to 18.1 in Q3 of last year. So 12 months of evolution for this company, and they were only able to increase revenue by a few $1 million here, you guys, which as an investor in this company, I really was hoping for a little bit more, closer to the 25-30 million type of range. And you can see within that $21 million, 4.7 actually was attributed to the partial quarter integration or operation of Green Roads. So if you strip that out of the equation, which last year they did not have Green Roads as part of this company, you're actually looking at a decline year over year in their core business revenue. Now, Tyler Robson, the CEO of the Valens Company, does speak to this change in strategy in his comments here. A couple of quarters ago, they really came out with a new statement where they're focusing on fewer, bigger, and better strategic deals in this industry. And as a result, they've really pushed a lot of the smaller B2B contracts to the side, which obviously impacts revenue. In addition to that, we just put out a video talking about some of these big clients that they signed on just recently here in the last couple of weeks. They're expecting these agreements to begin generating revenue over the next couple of quarters, so that's not yet reflected in the top line here at the Valens Company, but again, a little bit concerning just based on the core business operations. Now, the other thing that they discuss here is the fact that they now feel they've laid the groundwork, they have the structure in place to really start scaling and looking for efficiencies within the business. They talk about that in relation to the number of SKUs they have in the market, the provincial agreements that they have in place, and some of these big B2B contracts. So that'll be interesting to see as they're now shifting from their setup stage to their actual growth or ramp up phase. So next up here, I wanted to talk about some of the actual positive highlights I saw in this earnings report. So you can see provincial listings actually increased by 37%, meaning the Valens Company across all of their different brands now has over 180 SKUs listed in various provincial retailers. The addition of Citizen Stash also in Q3 now means the Valens Company combined ranked 11th by overall market share across all different product categories in Alberta, BC, and Ontario. And again, you see they reference Hifyre data set there. The bottom point here, also important to mention, a strong cash position of about $31 million on their balance sheet. So that's great to continue to finance some of this build out and development, specifically at the Green Roads location. And the final point I wanted to mention here, you guys, is actually in relation to their market share in the MJ infused beverage category. So this is really focused on their Summit and Basecamp beverages, and they're now commanding a 9% market share, again, Alberta, BC, and Ontario, in the MJ infused beverage category. This is one of the subcategories within the MJ industry that I'm extremely excited about. I think there's going to be a ton of growth here, and I think this is really going to catch on with mainstream consumers of MJ. And we're actually going to talk about that in a little bit more detail on the next slide here. So overall, you guys, I wasn't super excited with this earnings report. There were definitely some bright spots in relation to the number of SKUs, their market share, and some of these larger B2B contracts. However, the overall top line revenue did not come in where I was expecting, and management's really going to need to prove over the next couple of quarters that this change in strategy was the right decision, and it's ultimately going to lead to positive cash flow and EBITDA for the business moving forward. And that being said, you can see gross profit came in at $5.6 million, or 27% of net revenue in Q3, compared to $7.3 million and 40.3% of net revenue in Q3 of 2020. Now keep in mind, last year they were really focused on the MJ tolling and extraction for other third-party companies. That type of activity came along with much higher margins and really was quite a different business at that point in time. And in terms of adjusted EBITDA, they actually lost $6.2 million in Q3 of 2021 compared to a positive $1.4 million in Q3 of 2020. So if you work that out on a per share basis, it was actually a loss of 8 cents per share for Q3 of 2021. And based on all of this, you guys, I would not be surprised if the share price does retreat in tomorrow's session. I think a lot of people invested in the Valens Company were hoping that Q3 here was really going to be when this company put their foot on the gas, and it looks like we're going to have to wait a couple of more quarters to really start to see that exponential top-line revenue growth that a lot of us long-term shareholders are really banking on. Now, before we get into our second company here, Kontrol Technologies, I did want to pause on the MJ infused beverage sales. This is an article that came out in March of this year, and it really talks about the fact that this category is seeing extremely high growth compared to some of the other MJ verticals. Now, the data in this article is from the United States. However, I expect the trend here in Canada to be very similar, and you can actually see that this category grew over 40% between 2019 to 2020. Now, that being said, they call it out in this article, overall this category still represents a very small percentage of the MJ industry sales, so about 1.2%. However, the growth rate is what I'm really concerned with, you guys, and I think this is a great place to be, especially as consumers really look for alternatives to the traditional smoking of MJ or even alcohol alternatives. And that's exactly what they talk about in this article. A beverage is not something you have to smoke or light up. It's very convenient if you stop in at a gas station or you're having lunch. You can see that comment actually came from a VP at Planet 13, so another company that we've covered on this channel. Beverages are approachable and they really appeal to a healthier segment of the market that don't want the stigma related with smoking or potentially alcohol consumption. And that being said, I am still very optimistic about the future of the Valens Company. Just because they had an off quarter or two doesn't mean the company itself is in trouble, and I think they have effectively laid the foundation or groundwork for growth to come in future quarters. So next up, you guys, is Kontrol Technologies, ticker symbol KNR on the NEO Exchange here in Canada. Again, they had a positive session on Wednesday. They were up 9 cents per share, about 3.5% to close out the day at $2.56. Now, for full disclosure, I'm also invested in KNR Technologies. My average share price on these guys is $2.16. I only hold 300 shares, so it's definitely not a major position in my portfolio, but it is one that I'm super excited about. These guys are really focused on smart building technology, and they've got a BioCloud solution that claims to be able to identify airborne pathogens like COVID-19, which obviously could be a massive catalyst for this company. They're really starting to see some orders come in. They're in stage 4 testing with the Canadian government, and I do expect that technology to get approved and to start to roll out on a wide scale across the planet here as companies, businesses, sports teams start to look for ways to ensure that their areas or spaces are safe for the general public and for their staff. And that's exactly what we're starting to see here in terms of their revenue generation at this company. So you can see Kontrol Technologies reports preliminary revenue of $18 million in Q3 of 2021. Now, unlike the Valens Company, I was super excited about this number, you guys. This represents a 500% increase compared to Q3 of last year, where they only brought in $3 million, so massive exponential growth. This is really attributed to a couple of different things here, including the acceleration of the company's core business operating platform, the increased deployment of technology across their energy management and air quality verticals, and the recent acquisition of global HVAC and automation. Now, in addition to the preliminary Q3 results, Kontrol Technologies also provides full year 2021 guidance along with next year guidance, which is super exciting. So for 2021, they reiterated full year revenue of about $38 million, which is up from 12.3 in 2020. So about triple the revenue they brought in last year. Adjusted EBITDA positive $3.7 million, so great to see. And moving into 2022, they expect top line revenue of $85 to $90 million with $7 to $8 million of positive adjusted EBITDA. And what's interesting to see for me as an investor in both Kontrol Technologies and the Valens Company is full year guidance, you guys, is very similar for these two companies. So the Valens Company putting up about $24 million per quarter or about $100 million per year. Kontrol Technologies forecasted to put up about $90 million next year. So the revenue between these two companies, although they're in very different industries, is very similar. But the market cap on Kontrol Technologies is only about $120 million Canadian compared to about $400 million on the Valens Company. And that's exactly why I wanted to sell off some of my position in the Valens Company, spread out my risk, get into some other industries, you guys, because the MJ space, although I am super bullish on it long term, is struggling a little bit, and I am seeing better opportunities with similar or more aggressive revenue and EBITDA growth in other areas of the Canadian small cap market right now. And as a result, you are going to start to see some different types of companies on the channel here, potentially in the oil and gas space, the mining sector, and really start to open up the channel to some new opportunities outside of the traditional industries that we've been talking about. So that's it for today's video, you guys. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, McNallie Money, feel free to do so. Leave a comment in the section below on what you thought about the Valens Company Q3 results and Kontrol Technologies preliminary Q3 results, or if you're holding shares in either one of these companies. If you're still watching at this point in time, hopefully you found some value, so make sure you hit the like button on your way out. Thanks so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.